Good morning and welcome to Saturday Morning Coffee. My name is Tiffany Linderman and I'm here with Lance McKinnon. How you doing, Lance?
Good morning, Tiffany. How are you today? I'm doing wonderful.
I'm awesome, thank you.
Got a little scratchy throat going. I feel like I got that little Greg Brady thing going on here with the weather. But we'll get through this. But Tiffany, the good news is we have a very special guest with us today by the name of Liz Hagg. Good morning, Liz. Welcome to Saturday Morning Coffee.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing on this lovely day?
I'm good. And just so you know, I think it was Peter Brady.
Was it
That
Peter?
voice was changing. When it's time to change, you've got to. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to correct you, but I'm pretty sure it was Peter, not Greg.
You're probably right, because either that or I gotta say pork chops and applesauce. That's what I always have for dinner: pork chops and applesauce.
And I'm sure if I'm wrong, somebody somewhere will correct us.
Either way, I know it was one of the guys from the Brady Bunch, and that's how my voice feels this morning from my allergies. So bear with me, Greg, Peter, Bobby. I just know it wasn't Alice or anybody else like that.
Well, maybe it was Bobby. I think it was Bobby.
It could have been Bobby, and then one of
I don't know. It was one of them.
I gotta Google.
All I'm good for is going on the internet to search it, but not right now.
I'm already Googling here.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, welcome to Saturday Morning Coffee, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day. And I'm going to let Tiffany go ahead and bring you into it so I can preserve my voice. Bob, Peter, and Greg here.
Yes, you want to preserve your angel voice. So I have heard that you are doing some really amazing things with the financial world. I heard that you're also a financial coach that works with the Dave Ramsey group. So I would absolutely love to hear a little bit more about what that means and what you do to make a difference in other people's lives.
So Dave Ramsey has a program where you can be trained to be a financial coach based on his principles. And anybody who doesn't know, Dave Ramsey has a baby steps principles for getting out of debt, building wealth. And he's got a phrase: you live like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. And so he has a financial coaching program that I took. And as part of that, you go through some additional training and you can become a Ramsey Preferred Coach. I don't work for Ramsey, but I do have a connection to them. And anybody who would go into Ramsey and ask to talk to a coach or want some guidance there based on an algorithm and some zip codes, they might get me. So I love his principles. He is Christian based, but his steps are behavioral and simple and focused that people can feel accomplished. So I just fell in love with him. In my prior job, I would listen to him all the time on the radio and loved the humanity of the people when they came on to do a debt-free scream, when they're calling and listening and sharing their troubles over financial, and just how much it impacted them. Both finances in a good way and in a bad way, So so I am a Ramsey Preferred Financial Coach. So think of, people have life coaches, people have career coaches. I focus a lot on the financial end, and I encourage people, I empower them, give them the tools, and educate them on areas they don't know and to take control of their money.
And Liz, and how did you get here? I mean, you did mention your previous position, and I know what it is, but our viewers don't know. And how did you make that transition, and why you made that transition?
Yeah, so I had a career with a pharmaceutical company for 22 years. I loved it. It was a great career, and I really felt like I was impacting patient care. But over the last year or two, it had been changing. The culture had been changing. Just, it was different. And I didn't, because of healthcare in general, I didn't feel like I was having as much impact. And this is the position I had was shrinking over the years, and there was constant layoffs. So I decided, over a lot of tears with my husband, that at the last layoff, I would take a break and leave. I would take my severance package and figure out what God wanted me to do. And I had said to my husband, I think there's something more out there. And don't we all feel like we're supposed to have a purpose in life, right? Not just go to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not just do the grind, but have a purpose. And at 54, I think there's a bigger purpose. I don't know what it is. And we had financially comfortable. We had kind of followed all of the Ramsey steps over the 30 years, not even realizing we were following Ramsey steps. My husband and I have always communicated very well. So I left a couple years ago, mortified. I will tell you, I second guessed myself multiple times. But a few months in, I was visiting with our financial advisor who guides us on our investments. And he says, you'd be a great financial coach. And I was like, what's that? And I truly had no idea. I immediately went home, looked it up, and said, this is where God wants me to be. I can impact people one-on-one. I'm in a financial place. I don't have to make the huge salary I was making, because I don't. But I can really have an impact on people's lives. And so I jumped into the deep end, took the training, and have been I have been building my practice ever since. So
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
I just have to ask, how long have you been doing this now as a financial coach?
Yeah, about coaching people about a year and a half. I have been living these principles 30 years. I've always had an interest, and I do share with people years ago. And I think we've all gone through this, where we hit our late 30s and our early 40s and we go, are we saving enough? Are we going to be okay in retirement? And I didn't know. We were doing what we were supposed to, putting money into retirement. But you don't know. And compounding interest, it really takes off in your 50s if you do it young. So I went on that, and there's another name. Susie Orman is a big financial person who has some similar principles. And I went on her show. She had a show called How Am I Doing in her Saturday night. And I went on there. So I've always had this passion, curiosity, and interest. We work so hard for our money, right? We work so hard and get up every day. We want purpose, but then we want that purpose and what we're doing to have an impact in other ways too. And are we going to be okay? My kids aren't going to have to take care of me, so forth. So I've always had a passion for it. And I guess that's why God was waiting to knock me over the head and say, this is where you're supposed to be. So here I am.
That's awesome, and thank you for doing that. And it's one of the reasons why I have you on the show is, especially coming off of a year of COVID, a lot of people, I'm going to say everybody's lives have been impacted for the better or for the worse. So there's more to just talking about money when you're dealing with a coaching a client. There's that spiritual aspects. I mean, you're saving marriages, you're saving, people from addictions and so forth like that, because money it's good and it's bad, in the same lesson. But if you can help a couple come together and have an understanding, that brings them back together. Or in other words, we don't want them to separate, but you're doing more than just coaching. You're doing a lot. You're peeling back the onion and getting to the root cause.
A lot of onion peeling. And a lot of times people come to me and they think it's the surface of the finance, and they'll say, I need an agenda. What are we all going to cover? And I have ideas, but sometimes it'll go completely on a different path based on where they're at. And Lance, you brought up a very sticky subject, and this is a hard one, and it might hit people wrong from the standpoint of everybody has very strong beliefs. But I can tell you a lot of people out there have very strong beliefs that when they get married, they keep their money separate. And the power that when you get married, part of the traditional vows are all my worldly goods, and for better or for worse, we are in this together. But sometimes the money, it's a hard mental thing when you're first married because you've been both independent, and it takes a lot of trust and it takes communication. And many couples go years and years and years, and they start out keeping it separate, and they blink 10 years in, and he's got debt, she's got debt, and they're doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a hard subject to approach. And there's a lot of things that can also be intertwined with that. As I mentioned, the trust. So yeah, I find all of the clients that we do this, we start with a spending plan, the communication increases and the trust increases because you create a plan together that you both have to follow and you both agree to follow. It's like a roadmap. You're going on a trip to California, right? You want to be there in a week. So do we just get in our car and start driving?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not a free spirit like that. If I want to get there in a week, right? I got to know my path. Otherwise, I'll get detoured and shifted and everywhere else. Our money is kind of similar, right? We got to know where we're going, what our goals are as a couple, or if you're single, as a single person, and what you want to accomplish. But then we all know a goal, what is it? A goal is just a dream if you don't have a plan, right? Something like that.
Absolutely.
And so there's got to be a plan, and the two couples have to come together, communicate, and have that plan. And I recently had a couple in their 50s, and they were doing fine. They weren't living paycheck to paycheck. But they knew that they weren't doing as well as they could. And they came and they wanted more intentionality because they were in their 50s and they knew retirement was 10 years away and wanted to be better. And I remember her saying to me, we don't argue. I know what we agree upon, and I have permission to spend it if we agree upon it, and we're a team. And she says, the guilt is gone if I buy something and say, oh, is he going to get upset I bought this? If that's in the plan and the communication's there, she's like, I don't feel guilty anymore. So, but it is a hard subject for everybody because it takes trust and it takes communication and it takes teamwork.
I was just going to share a little bit of, it's funny how you mentioned about the joint accounts. For me, when I first started, I mentioned earlier dating my husband now. That was like the first like milestone or exciting thing I actually had. We made a joint account. The funny part of that is my husband is very much the planner, the saver, the one that's financially savvy. I, on the other hand, was the spender, the relationship. So part of the benefit, I think it helped to rein in the conversation around how do we need to start that path forward together, just as you described. Because I was kind of like, if I had the money, I was spending it. And he's like, it's sort of the Dave Ramsey concept, right? You don't just spend the money you have. I mean, unless you want to live paycheck to paycheck, you need to be putting a little bit on the side to save for that rainy day. And I'm sure you can elaborate more on that. But I think it's very, very true. I think if I hadn't done that with my husband, I don't think I would have learned that how to rein myself in a little bit more. And I mean, I'm in such a different spot today than I was, 15 years ago when we first started on this journey. But I just wanted to share that with you because it's just been an interesting thing to learn, and there's truth in what you just said.
Yeah, well, and it is interesting. You say the word budget, okay, and it has kind of a restrictive, negative connotation to it. People are like, "Oh, I don't want to be on a budget," But the reality is, it's a spending plan. I make so much money. Where does my money need to go? And telling every single dollar that you make where it needs to go. And you always take care, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, first thing you take care of are your four walls, right? You got to eat. You have to have shelter, which includes the utilities. You need transportation to get to a job. And depending upon the job, you need some kind of clothing on your back. You don't want to show up naked, right? but that's probably the fourth one.
That's
So
right.
what you Lance might, I don't know, but
We're on Zoom.
yeah,
That's, who knows?
that's true. Your clothing budget only needs to be from the shirt up, so you
Saturday
can
morning
cut
coffee.
back.
Yes.
So, but what happens is you can outspend any paycheck. Okay. I've heard instances of couple making $15,000 a month and they're outspending it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what you make, but it's it's knowing what your goals are, whether you're single or together. Your goals are to buy a house. If your goals are you like to travel, whatever those goals are, and building them into the spending plan to save. But it's not easy for people. It means tracking. Here's the other. So the first thing you want to do is you want to plan. Sit down the month before and you plan out where that money that you're going to make next month is going to go. Okay. Start with the food, the shelter, and then you have all the other things. I can't tell you how many clients come to me with hundreds of dollars in subscriptions. They are like money suckers. And those are it's the monthly charges, whether it's Netflix, Hulu, music, Spotify, that all of a sudden Audible, that they blink and they have $130, $40 worth of monthlies that are automatically charged to their card and they don't even use half the time.
Correct.
So it's really, so you first you plan, but then you have to track. And that's the hard part for people because now you have to follow the roadmap. This is what we said. I'm going to make it a game. This is how much I want to spend on groceries. How can I make it work? And you follow it. And then you see at the end of the month, you set your savings goal and then you repeat. And then together you and your spouse follow it. You look at what went well. Things go awry, guys. Things happen. Okay. I get it. Our air conditioner, we didn't even think about it. Our air conditioner broke last year.
How is it too? Man.
I know. In the middle of July, right at this time, $8,000 to replace it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And having an emergency fund is so key. But what we find is everybody eventually piles up more debt. And that debt is like this is what my clients describe it. It's like they're carrying around a backpack all day, every day, filled with bricks. It's on their mind, it's weighing them down. And so if we can take all that weight off the backpack and remove it, all that money that they pay in debt is going to come back to them. I have an amazing couple. They have $3,000, and some of it is student loans. Gosh, that's another conversation. $3,000 a month. And we said, when you get rid of this, and it'll be a hard journey for 2 years, but now $3,000 is coming back to you every month. That's $36,000 a year, $72,000 in 2 years. So it is, anyway, I kind of digress on that part of it, but it is an amazing journey when you can make it happen and take that backpack off.
I always say that too, people, sometimes just because you make it, they live outside of their means. And you made reference to it. I know people who make $10,000 a month, but their expenses are $9,800. You're living beyond your means. You're living with the Joneses, but you're just barely getting by. And you're stressed. So it's really important to know what your lane is, what you're comfortable with, and what you're setting up. So, and that's really important that personally as an individual or as a couple to where you want to go on vacations. They always say that women schedule better vacations than men because men, we have these lavish things that we want to do. Women are more budgeted to that. I'll give you credit. I like to do wild things, but I also know my means as well too. So, and I think it's very important And I'm not going to go against men. Okay, guys, don't yell at me and scream at me or anything else like this. But I do believe a lot of men need to put their pride aside and have these conversations with your wives, because I think pride gets in the way of these conversations. Would I be correct in saying that, Liz?
I don't want to say it's all men or all women, but I think what comes into play is I make more money than you do. And there's a psychological. And usually what I see in some couples is they're contributing to a pot based on how much they each make. And they're not becoming one. And if you're one unit, maybe the wife, I took time in my career and I went part-time and I wasn't making as much, but I'm taking care of the house and the kids and the groceries and everything else. So as a team, life shifts. And then when I went back full-time, my husband was still full-time, but I'm like, I can't do all the same things. So he picked up the groceries now on Saturdays. So I think it's about knowing that it doesn't matter what each one makes, it's what you do together that propels you. And I think that's where people, it's synergistic, right? Synergy is when 1 + 1 = 3. Okay. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. And we talk about synergy a lot in the pharmacy with drugs and medicine. So when we work together with a spouse, similar goals, and they might be different. I'll be honest, I love the beach. My husband would like a lake. So we have to find a common ground and to what's going to work, right? But when we work together with our finances, 1 + 1 = 3.
Mm-hmm.
You sound like a relationship coach too. My goodness. I love it. I mean, I think that is so important because I think that there's many times where that shift in lack of reality that, like you said, taking care of the kids at home or doing the groceries or the chores, or even if you are doing a job that you're working 40 hours a week and the spouse is working 40 hours a week, it can go both ways, right? That it's important that it's an equal playing field and that we're working together. And like you just said, you can achieve more together when we're on the same page. But if we're going to be opposing and fighting each other through all of it, obviously we're going to backtrack, unfortunately. So I think it's important to really call that out. And I think that you're helping the couples come together to really open up. I think not only in the financial realm, but just in a lot of other things. I can only imagine how relieved having some of those open conversations can really change things in that relationship. So thank you for voicing that for the group.
And, I do work with singles too. I have a lot of divorced women, single women that are, the husband managed everything and now they're on their own and they don't know how to manage the money. And I also have single men. I kind of have a combination. I have one young man, just love him. He graduated, has a really good job, and he says, I know nothing about personal finance. So I appreciate my education, and now I need to invest and learn more about how I have this great job and I can make more of it. And he's engaged, and his fiance, or they're soon to be engaged, listens in on the conversation as they build these skills for when they get married. Not many 22-year-olds come out of college and say, I'm going to hire a financial coach to teach me how to make the most. And I told them they will thrive if they're doing this, and it's amazing. Now, I will also share as balanced. I have some clients that are very stuck. And there is an emotional tie, and it is really hard to sacrifice. When people aren't getting ahead or you're living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes it is, I'm not making enough, but sometimes it means get a second job. I hate saying that. It's temporary till we figure it out. But sometimes people get stuck because of other things going on in their relationships. Maybe somebody's depressed. Maybe they have children, grown children, that there's some issues that they're caring for. Baby boomers, I feel they're probably hardest because they're trying to take care of their parents in many cases. And then they have their grown children who have now come and everybody is strapped and they've taken out student loans. And that is a hot topic. I know people are hoping the government's going to take them away or cut them down. The part that I want to focus on is when you take out a student loan, find out what that payment is going to be when you graduate. Because 100,000, 80, it's like buying a small house. And the problem that we do, our government, is because of wanting to give everybody the opportunity, there's no questions asked. You need the student loan, you fill out the form. For the most part, here it is. If you're going to get a job and you're only going to make $40,000 a year, I'm sorry, don't go to a $200,000 school. It just isn't. Your education is your return on your investment. And make sure that it's going to balance out what you've done. And I feel terrible for some of my clients who are now, that this payment is $2,000 a month and they make $4,000. It's 50%, if they're even ever going to get out of it. Otherwise, and they get into this whole income repayment plan, they're going to have that backpack on their back for the next 40 years of their life. If we can't figure out how to get it off their back, and it will drag them down.
It'll cause additional stress on them mentally, personally, relationship-wise, and everything. I have a question for you, Liz. How do you feel about each couple having mad money set aside?
It's an agreement. If it's in the spending plan, there is a fund money. You each get whatever you two agree upon. You know, am I going to say $1,000 each? Probably not, because you're in a situation. But if somebody wants $100 to do what they want or no questions asked, yeah. But it has to be in the plan, and it has to be an agreement, right? And it's got to be built into the goals of trying to get out of the debt and the goals that you've set. So that's the thing. People will say, well, you get this and you get this, but how does it work within the plan so that you have something at the end to apply to debt, to apply to an emergency fund, to apply to a down payment to a house, right? There's only so much, and nobody that I have ever met has a money tree. You know,
I just planted one in my backyard.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking.
I got four or five.
Trying.
I got 4 or 5 that are trying to grow, but this heat's killing them.
Yeah, mine are green, but they're not producing any ink mark or anything.
Yeah.
I would love to go back really quickly and ask about the college students as you talk about that, because I think there's a lot of kids right now, either that are in high school that are thinking about going to college or obviously coming out of college. I think it's a little late at that point, but I think the interesting thought, or what I want to ask you, is what are your thoughts about when we talk about high school students or families that have children that they're considering going to college? I think the conversation really needs to happen much earlier. And I honestly feel like there's this large push for every kid to have this plan to go to college and they know exactly what they're going to do. So I would love to hear what your thoughts around all of that are.
So, you know, college is another one of those little sticky. We all need to go. I believe trade schools, colleges, they are good because you're investing in your future. But I also, and I live in a very nice area where people get caught up in a designer school name. I have to go to a big school name so I can get a better job. Let me ask you this. Has anybody ever asked you, when you went to your job, even after you started, where you went to college in an interview at this point? No. When do you ever go to a doctor and say, where did you go to college? You don't, right? You want somebody. So I think the first thing is we all have to get over the mindset of what can we afford? And I will tell you, this is coming from my clients, not from me, that are 22, 24, 27. If I knew then what I know now, I would never have taken out these loans. My parents encouraged me. This is good debt. but now they're strapped with $80,000, $100,000, and they didn't know what that meant. So I know I sat down with my kids and I said, look, first of all, I did save. So I put a parameter. This is what we have. This, you're not taking out student loans. This is what we can afford because we've saved up. And so find a school within these parameters. Yeah. And I will tell you, I made some mistakes. I went to some hoity-toity thinking because my daughter has really good academics that she would get academic money. And these were like brand name private schools. And then I got there and I realized because I had saved up the money and things were good, she was getting a penny. And I'm in the car with her and God love her. She's all upset. I love this school. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, I messed this up. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just not letting you do it. You will thank me when you are 23. That's what my clients that are young, that are back living at home. And it's funny, this is what a client said to me, and he's from New Jersey. He said, when my sister and I went to school, and these are his words, so don't give me hate mail. He said, my sister was an average student, so they shoved paperwork and said, here's the community college. He said, I was an A student, so they shoved paperwork and said, here's your college info, take out loans. And he said, if I had done it again, I would have gone to community college for 2 years, saved money, and then gone. Because you know what happens in the end? All that matters on the degree is the name. Like the diploma that you receive with the school. That's it. But the other component that I see that is another touchy subject is parents want their kids to have the 4-year college experience. And I think we all, if we went to school, it was fun. It helped us grow. The problem is that 4-year experience can cost them 20 to 30 years of debt. And is the 4 years worth it for that kind of debt? And can we get them a different kind of experience? But that's very hard. And when in a society, you know, Lance, you mentioned some of the pressures in COVID and keeping up with Joneses. We are bombarded by social media. Does anybody ever post? Okay, for the most part, nobody ever posts anything negative about, oh my God, I'm drowning in debt. Nope, I took this vacation. I went here. My kid's going there. It's all people want to share, but at the same time, it isn't always realistic.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to shut that off. And I do think, and our society's competitive, right?
Very
Think about it. What do we highlight on the news? Competition. Who's the best? Who's outstanding? So everybody wants their kids to be the best and to be outstanding. And it takes a lot of thought, courage to say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to take a different path because I don't want my kids to come out with loans. And I don't, and the parents, I can't, guys, I got boomers in their 50s with 80,000 over with student loan debt for their kids. And they don't have the money for retirement and they've taken out Parent Plus. We have to put the oxygen mask on us first. It is an analogy we use all the time. When the plane, you're on a plane and you have your kid sitting there or an elderly parent that can't do for them, you have to put the mask on yourself first and then you can help the other people. But if you're drowning, how are you going to help others?
That is absolutely true. That is true. And you are very passionate and I know it's Saturday and we could probably talk about this for hours and we would love to have another continuous conversation about this because I have a lot more questions I want to ask as well too, because I know we talked about people about debt, but also there's ways we can set people up to not get into debt. You know, so this conversation we could probably sit and talk about hours. So if you don't mind, we would love to have you back again some other time because I think we can dig deeper into this. And as I think we're coming out of COVID, we're all seeing a lot of things change, inflations and stuff like that. So a lot of things are changing for a lot of people now. But you're making a huge difference in people's lives today. and in the future and every day. And I thank you very much, Liz, for taking time out to be with us on Saturday morning to give us a little tidbit of this and to get people to start thinking about this. And we'll make sure we have all your information where how people can reach you and just to ask you questions.
Yeah.
To open up the door for them, to help them, because everybody, like I said, everybody's been impacted one way or the other. So we'll make sure we get all that information out there.
Well, and just know, for all my clients, like, nobody has to commit, but initially I do a free complimentary consultation. So they'll work one-on-one with me for about an hour, getting to know each other, because money is personal and you really want to be comfortable with the person that you're peeling your onion away with and sharing your emotions. So there's no strong commitment. I tell people it's a conversation. Let's talk for an hour. And I'll be honest, I won't take all clients. I had some guy and I said, yeah, no, we're not the right fit. You're not ready. He was not ready to make this. But I will leave with this. I know you're wrapping up. Doing this is transformational. I see it. My clients get better jobs. They gain more confidence. I had a client who was laid off at 61 and thought, I'll never get back in. Had a job within 3 months during COVID of doing this. I have another one in her 60s that was just getting by with Social Security. She said, Liz, I can't pay you. How am I I can't pay my bills all the time. She is now back in the workforce part-time, killing it. And in her 60s will probably be debt-free with $17,000 gone within 1 year. And it just transforms people. So that's it is so worth it. It is hard work, but if you are ready to make a change to your life, it's so worth it. It's an investment though.
Yep. You got to put the grind in. We got to put the grind in. And Liz, thank you. And Tiffany, do you have any closing words?
I can't wait till we meet with you next time.
Yes, because I think we need to dig in a little bit deeper into this. And as we go on, as the world opens up more, there's going to be a lot more conversations regarding how do we get ourselves out of these situations. And
Yep.
Again, thank you for joining us on Saturday Morning Coffee.
Woo!
And we'll have a continued conversation. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm going to go rest my voice.
And thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.